All right, I am really excited to talk about this book I just finished on Matthew Manning. I think his middle name is H. Um, this is the book is called The Link. Matthew Manning's own story of his extraordinary psychic gifts. And I was actually referred to Matthew Manning by Nobel physicist Brian Josephson. He had mentioned how he had experienced the bending of metal with paranormal powers. It wasn't a spoon, it was like some kind of key or something, some really strong metal. And I had asked Nobel physicist Brian Josephson who it was. I had guessed this one person whose book I had read about 10 years ago. I just put the books in storage, so anyway, he said no, it wasn't that guy, it was Matthew Manning. And I realized I didn't know anything about Matthew Manning. So then I found his book, the Link, and it came out in 1974, and it got printed into 100 different languages. So it was a huge success as a book. And before I finished the book, I looked up Matthew Manning on the internet, and I did a blog post on him that I will link to. And I might have mentioned him before, but basically, I'm a huge bookworm. I've read tons and tons of books, but I didn't expect to be so impressed. The book it's very hard to believe unless you already know about this subject matter enough to realize that everything he describes is definitely possible. And Nobel physicist Brian Josephson, he has this long quote on the back that they included in the book too, and it says that we are dealing here with a new kind of energy. This force must be subject to laws. And essentially, a quantum mechanics professor, Basil J. Hiley, who recently sent me a long email response about non-commutativity, he also says that this is a new kind of energy and a newly discovered force. He calls it the causative force. And probably the most impressive phenomenon that Matthew Manning experienced and the people around him experienced is teleportation of objects, or what they also call apportation in sort of the early psychic research. But if you study this non-commutativity, which is basically a relativistic quantum force as a sort of an ether, then you're basically getting a macro quantum coherence, and you realize that all matter is made of light, and light itself is powered by essentially the future, by a relativistic quantum negative frequency and reverse time energy or force. It's the terminology is tricky because, you know, science is like, it's only technically energy if it has the amplitude, but this is before you can measure the amplitude. So it's it's also, you know, proto-consciousness, what Roger Penrose calls proto-consciousness. And so there's the other quote in here is from Dr. George Owen, and he was at Cambridge, I think, and he was a well-known paranormal investigator, because he says in the book, well, you know, Cambridge has a long history of studying the paranormal, you know, like previous renowned physicists. I think they were probably some of them Nobel physicists also. And Dr. George Owen, he tries to explain the moving of very heavy objects by saying, well, if you consider the energy of a 4-stone child, which I think would be 80 pounds, raising itself through 5 feet in 10 seconds by running up a short flight of stairs, does 280 foot-pounds of work, and is developing power at the rate of 28 foot-pounds per second. If paranormally the child raised a 4-stone weight through 5 feet in 10 seconds, and this would be quite a spectacular feat for the average poltergeist, the energy and power supply would be just the same as those provided physiologically in running upstairs. So, the thing is that actually some of these objects that were moved were way too heavy for a child to move on its own, like super heavy beds, bunk beds and stuff like that, and cabinets, really big old oak cabinets and whatever. And there was a table that was moved down 3 flights of stairs, and it was only like 28 inches wide, and the door space was 30 inches, and it had all this stuff on it. But some objects would just appear out of nowhere. They would start raining down rocks and wood bits. And then essentially, as you read the book, you learn that the poltergeist phenomenon is the spirits are using his energy. But what has to be realized is that it's not just his energy, it's the energy of the universe. this non-commutativity or reverse time energy. It's also called negative particles, or so it's anti-gravity energy. That Matthew Manning is able to channel through his body and mind, and that's why the spirits are able to use his body as he embodies the emptiness, as it's called in Taoist yoga meditation. So he learns to then, he does automatic writing. He notices when he's angry, or he's stressed out. When he's stressed out, then he'll exhibit this telekinesis. The poltergeist would be stronger, and then so we know that that's the sympathetic nervous system, and that when you transmit energy through by activating the sympathetic nervous system. But then he learns later to go into a deeper relaxed state, that in the beginning, this psychologist who examined him writes the introduction, or is that Peter Bannon? Anyway, the videos online also describe the research into him, but essentially they say he's using the oldest part of his brain, but they logically infer this part of his brain based on his brain waves, where he's spiking in the very low delta deep sleep brain waves, and that would be only found in the nucleus accumbens, which is sort of like below the pineal gland, like in front and below the pineal gland, but it's a deep vagus nerve activation, so it's a deep relaxation. And so this is actually coming from the heart, the Yuan Qi from the heart. This is reverse time energy that he's connecting to. And then he learns, when he does automatic writing, that's another way for the spirits to use his energy. And he does all this amazing drawing and writes in other languages that he doesn't know. They have to be translated by other people. And then he starts communicating with spirits, and it's just super fascinating. But then the poltergeist disappears when he does automatic writing, because he's channeling, he's using up his own energy by channeling, communicating with the spirits. And one of the spirits was creating this strong light and heat, and at the same time creating a strong cold. So it was sort of like a laser heat. He said it was like a magnifying glass focusing the sun, and that was a sort of a portal to this fifth dimension that would then manifest visions. And they were afraid it was going to start a fire, so he was able to communicate with that spirit. It was a haunted spirit that had been murdered, and she told him what to do to heal her. And this is what the Qigong Grand Master does, is he heals spirits. I've seen the spirits, the ghosts, go to him to get healed. And he said he regularly heals the ghosts and spirits so that they can return back to this emptiness, or the formless. It's like the light gets super bright when you go into the emptiness, and you lose all sense of. Whereas Matthew Manning says he has to empty out his mind, and then he says when there's a lack of noise, then the answers come to him. And so then he's able to see auras, and all the different colors, and he learns that means different things for people. But he has to go into this deep, relaxed state that he doesn't know how he does it. He says he just like turns his brain off and on, the electrical charge in his brain, and then he starts receiving electric shocks, all the time when he touches stuff. And then after he's done with the book, he goes to India, and he has this transcendent, deep, like formless awareness experience. And then he realizes that he's going to just use this energy for healing, and he's been a spiritual healer ever since. He just visualizes light coming down through the top of his head and then coming out of his hands, and then that's how he heals people. And it's just a totally fascinating book and experience, and I feel honored that I was able to read it. And that's all I'm going to share for now. Thanks.